Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Happy Life. I'm Dr. Joshua Swift, professor of psychology at Idaho State University, licensed clinical psychologist, and author of Becoming Happy, a guide to self-care and holistic well-being. On today's episode, we are going to talk about exercise. In thinking about this topic, a quote from Wilhelm von Humboldt, a famed European philosopher, educator, and politician, seems to fit especially well. He said, "True enjoyment comes from activity of the mind and exercise of the body. The two are ever united." I love how he links them together. But what does the science say? Is it possible that our mental experiences, including our emotion of happiness, are tied to our physical activity? We will discuss this question in today's episode. But before we get started, let me just remind you to hit subscribe or follow so you never miss any of our future episodes. And please share with others. Now, growing up with the last name of Swift, exercise and fitness has always been a big part of my life. When I was young, I remember my parents timing me to see how fast I could run around our neighborhood block or run and touch the mailbox and come back. I often played active games with my siblings, like football in the street, basketball in the driveway, or kickball or dodgeball in our backyard. And as I got older, I joined a softball and then baseball team. And in middle school and high school, I ran cross country and track. As an adult, I continue to stay active by weightlifting every morning, riding my bike to work throughout the year, and playing basketball with my children in our backyard. And I had mentioned before that one of the images that represents happiness best for me is that of my family hiking in the mountains somewhere. Exercise and physical activity bring me a significant amount of joy and happiness. And the more vigorous or intense the activity, the better I feel. Now, although my teenage daughter sometimes tells me that I'm weird for liking exercise so much, there is actually some science that supports my experiences. Exercise makes people feel happy. There are well over 100,000 different studies that I could talk about to support this claim. And most of this research has used a correlational design. And this research has shown that people's subjective reports of their activity level, as well as objective monitoring of the activities they engage in, are associated with life satisfaction, general well-being, and happiness. Now, it could be that happy people just exercise more than unhappy ones. Studies have shown that this is true. Happiness does lead to more exercise. But when researchers have attempted to break down these relationships through longitudinal studies, time series analyses, and more advanced statistical designs, they have found that the directional relationship of exercise leading to happiness explains a 4 times greater percentage of the correlational relationship between these two variables than happiness leading to exercise. And they've found that physical activity today not only predicts happiness experience today, but it also predicts happiness 2 or 4 years down the road. And further supporting the directional relationship, many experimental studies do exist, where participants have been randomly assigned to exercise interventions or non-exercise conditions. In this way, the researchers tightly control extraneous variables and are able to pinpoint cause and effect. In one recent meta-analysis of 36 experimental studies, the authors found that those who had been assigned to a physically active intervention showed increases in their well-being that were 3 times greater than those who are assigned to control conditions. So, the evidence is clear. Being physically active is not only associated with happiness, but it can directly cause people to experience more of this positive emotion in their lives. So, knowing these benefits, you may be wondering if there's a right way to do physical activity. In other words, you might ask, is there a best type, frequency, duration, intensity, or more of activity that improves happiness? In terms of our physical well-being, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has suggested that adults should aim for 150 minutes or more of moderate physical activity per week, or 75 minutes or more of vigorous or intense physical activity, or some combination of the two. They also recommend that some of the activity should be aerobic and spread throughout the week, and some should focus on strength training, hitting the major muscle groups at least twice per week. In summary, though, they say that any physical activity for any duration is better than nothing at all. But do those suggestions also result in more happiness? Well, when it comes to our emotional well-being, the recommendations are not as specific. It is clear that any physical activity is better than no physical activity. And one review of the literature even suggested that as little as 10 minutes of physical activity per week, or 1 day of doing exercise per week, can result in increased levels of happiness. But the existing research has also demonstrated that if someone does engage in more frequent or longer durations of physical activity throughout a week, then they will experience even more happiness from that. Now, further, moderate physical exercise, such as brisk walking, riding a bike, doubles tennis or pickleball, and water aerobics, or vigorous physical exercise, such as running, singles tennis, uphill bicycling, and swimming, does seem to produce more mood benefits than light physical activity, such as casual walking, stretching, or playing ping pong. From the research, though, it doesn't seem like there is much of a difference in happiness benefits between doing moderately intense and vigorously intense activities. While many studies have found no difference between these two types of exercises, a large-scale survey with almost 23,000 participants from 28 European countries actually found that very intense activities were associated with lower well-being scores. Now, in contrast, several other studies have found that more endorphins, which are one of our happy hormones, are released when the activity is more vigorous. So, given these mixed findings, for now, it seems like the results are saying that going with moderate or more intense physical activity may really just boil down to a personal preference. In addition to the research trying to identify the best duration, frequency, and intensity of exercise, there has been some research that has attempted to figure out if there's a particular type of sport or activity that leads to more happiness than others. Now, here, the results seem consistent with the findings that I just mentioned. Sports that involve light activity do produce some happiness, just not as much as the ones that involve moderate or vigorous activity. But between the moderate and vigorous ones, the results seem to differ widely from one study to the next, partially depending on where the study was conducted. For example, a study carried out in South Korea found that fighting sports provided the most happiness and running the least. But one done in England found that yoga, cycling, and lifting weights made people the happiest. And if you ask people around where I live, they would definitely say that the most joy comes from skiing, mountain biking, or hiking. So the best type of sport to participate in probably just depends on interest and cultural norms. Now, there are likely several reasons why engaging in exercise or regular physical activity produces happiness. First, we know that there is a chemical explanation. Exercise has been shown to cause the release of endorphins within our brains. And endorphins are sometimes referred to as our natural painkillers. And they are the neurotransmitters that cause us to feel euphoria or a pleasurable high. Now, it's thought that when we exercise, our muscles and organs send pain signals to the brain. And in response, the brain releases these endorphins to counteract the discomfort that we're experiencing. Now, if the exercise is something new to us, or it's more difficult than we can handle, or if the pain represents a real injury, we'll likely stop our exercise. But if the pain is relatively minor, or we get used to it, we can usually keep going. And as we do that, we can start to notice the euphoric benefits of the endorphins more, rather than just experiencing the pain masking benefits. In addition, the elevated endorphins can last even after the exercise is over, causing the happiness effects to linger. Now, second, engaging in exercise involves purpose and goal-driven behavior. And this type of behavior is also linked to happiness. Even if you don't have a goal of competing in the Olympics or running a marathon, there is a goal element to almost all physical activity. Whether it is lifting a heavier weight in your workouts, winning a game in a team sport, setting a PR in an individual sport, or even just walking or hiking a certain distance, there is always some type of purpose to the activity. And this purpose often helps us create a sense of identity. And then having a purpose or identity in our lives leads to happiness. This is perhaps why studies have found that those who participate in physical activities also experience a greater amount of self-esteem. Now, third, participating in exercise and physical activity has been shown to increase social connections and social health, which has also been linked to happiness. Now, this benefit is obvious for team sports. I still remember kids from my childhood baseball and softball teams, even though I played over 30 years ago. And all of my best friends from middle school and high school were either on my cross country or track team, or were ones that I would regularly play basketball with after school. But even if you do a physical activity alone, the opportunities to build social connections are still there. For example, the swimming pool at my university is closed right now for repairs. But when it was open, I would go swim laps with my children every Friday afternoon. And there were 3 or 4 other people who would also show up to swim laps at the same time. Now, occasionally I would say hi to them when I would see them each week, but I never had a conversation with them beyond that. And I never learned any of their names. Still, though, I felt a connection to them. We were the Friday afternoon swimmers, and having this community made me feel good. So sometimes this sense of community can be with people we have never even met. It may be a fitness expert on social media and their other followers, or it may be a group of like-minded athletes. Even though you have never met any of them, the connection can still be there. For example, my wife grew up playing tennis, and when she meets someone else who plays tennis, she has an instant connection with that person. They are tennis players. And having this type of shared identity with others can create a feeling of belonging or happiness in our lives. Now, as a humorous side, before I proposed to my wife, she once told me that in order to be accepted by her extended family, I would have to know how to play tennis. So I went out and I bought a racket and balls and started practicing that very next day. Now, last, in addition to the purpose and connections that can directly be found in exercise, those who engage in regular physical activity may be more able to participate in other activities in their lives that can also provide purpose and meaning for them. There was a viral commercial that was released a few years back by Doc Morris, a European pharmaceutical company that really touched on this. And perhaps you've seen it before. If not, though, I'll link it with this video. So this commercial starts with an older man who seems to be frustrated with his aging and declining physical health. But then, due to a spark of motivation, he decides to do something about it. He goes to his garage and finds a dusty kettlebell that he is barely able to get up off the ground. However, each day he keeps working at it. At a couple of points in this commercial, it shows that he almost gives up, but he persists and he's able to start noticing improvements in his ability to lift the kettlebell. The commercial then shows the happiness that he develops as he adopts an identity of being physically active and healthy. Now, I don't want to spoil it too much, but in the end, it shows him performing the goal that he had been working toward, something that was very meaningful to him, and something he couldn't have done if he hadn't put in the regular physical exercise. So we see that exercise can improve happiness, and it does so for a number of reasons. Still, it's estimated that only 28% of US adults get an adequate amount of physical activity each week. So how can we change that? Well, let me finish our episode today by sharing a few recommendations for increasing exercise in our lives. First, figure out what types of exercise you enjoy. The physical activity isn't going to make you happy if you don't want to engage in it. In addition, you are not going to be able to regularly commit to it and make it a habit if you don't find it to be fun. So throughout my marriage, I've attempted to do some aerobic exercise videos with my wife. I definitely can get a good cardio workout from them, and they do make me sweat. But I've never been able to stick with them for more than a week or two. In contrast, I love weightlifting, running, hiking, and most ball sports. And I'm able to do those on a regular basis without any difficulty. My wife, on the other hand, really dislikes weightlifting and running. And although she recognizes that those could be physically beneficial, they're not going to make her happy. So identifying the exercises that we personally enjoy can help us be more consistent in engaging them for the long run. Second, and related to the first recommendation, keep the right focus or purpose in mind. Exercise done for weight loss alone usually does not lead to happiness. And in fact, research has shown that it often doesn't lead to meaningful or sustained weight loss either. Potential calorie expenditure through exercise can only play a small role in any weight loss plan. To put it in perspective, a slice of pizza from the Costco food court has about 700 calories in it. At 180 pounds, I would have to run about 5 miles to burn those calories. And if I'm routinely overeating by that much, it would be extremely difficult for me to create a calorie deficit that would lead to weight loss through regular exercise. Because of this, people usually give up on their exercise routines when weight loss is their only reason for doing it. Instead, keeping your focus on the health and happiness benefits that exercise can bring can lead to creating more consistent habits of physical activity. Third, as you do start to implement or increase the physical activity in your daily schedule, remember to go slow. For example, if you haven't gone for a jog in years, don't go out and try to do a 3-mile run today. If you do, you'll likely feel a lot of pain and frustration and not want to try again. Remember, habits are created one small step at a time. Think incremental gains, like starting with a walk and working your way up from there. This will give your muscles and stamina time to grow without experiencing the pain and anguish that will make you want to quit engaging in the physical activity. Fourth, make sure to take care of your nutrition and sleep. This is what is going to give your body the energy and motivation to exercise on a regular basis. I dread even my favorite physical activities if I don't get enough sleep the night before. Last, force some physical activity into your schedule. Although dedicated moderate to vigorous activities lead to the most happiness, more casual, light physical activities have benefits too. Get into the habit of walking across campus or town instead of driving, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking at the far end of the parking lot, and setting a timer on your watch to remind yourself to get up from the computer or couch and walk around the office or your house once every 60 minutes. These small instances of physical exercise can add up and contribute meaningfully to the overall happiness that you experience in your life. Well, thank you for joining us today on A Happy Life. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe or follow below to receive notifications for all of our future episodes. And please share with others. Take care until next time.